two, one. Broadcasting tape delayed from CBS's 30 Rock headquarters in New York City, where one shining moment is edited. Sports Economy Show is on. Today's show is about
One shining moment.
evidently this is JP's favorite day in all of sports. The one shining moment.
Nah, I do love some one shining moment. I'm not gonna lie to you.
Oh, good. Because that's what today is all about. As we're recording this show, the game is going to be played in a couple of hours. In which what follows the game at the end? The one shining moment. Yeah. And you know the one thing that literally I didn't understand. I couldn't believe it. Yeah. It's not sponsored.
All the years it has been aired,
it is not sponsored. I couldn't believe it.
Which is,
that's unbelievable. I mean, everything's sponsored.
Yeah.
We sponsor the sole of your shoe. Whatever it is, man.
Yeah, anything.
Yeah, anything, whatever it is, we'll sponsor.
I'm trying to think of the worst thing that's sponsored, but I can't. But everything is sponsored nowadays.
Yeah.
So I can't believe something that's actually been airing for almost 40 years.
Yeah.
It's never been sponsored.
I try to find the information. I said, is this thing sponsored? No, it is not. I guess CBS feels this is some sort of sacred song that they got here.
Yeah, I tried to find it if it was sponsored. I couldn't find anything. And then AI just said, as far as we know, it's never been sponsored. I said, okay.
Okay. So anyway, there is one thing out there that's not sold out yet.
Right.
That's unbelievable. So anyway, but I did find a video of Charles Barkley singing One Shining Moment for TBS. So Charles Barkley's version is sponsored. I'm going to put that on this video. If Google will allow me, they may say this is copyrighted. So
I don't think anybody's copyrighting Charles Barkley. But I will,
So anyway, I want to bring this up.
Okay.
The guy who wrote this was named David Barrett. He's a singer and Emmy Award-winning composer.
Yep.
And his version of the song was for a few years. But after that, who sang the song? The famous version.
Oh, well, okay. So basically, I'll break it down to as far as what years were being used. So Barrett, they used it from 87 to 93. First year was...
So 6 years. He did 6 years.
6 years.
Right.
First year was March of 1987.
Yeah.
It was Indiana and Syracuse. Classic game. Do you remember how that game ended?
Didn't Keith Smart hit
a
shot?
Keith Smart hit a shot. Game winner.
I don't know how I remember that, but...
Because it was a classic.
Because it was one shining moment.
Right. And what's crazy is, basically, college basketball at that point was at a booming, they were booming.
They had a couple years ago, they had just went from 32 to 64 teams.
Right. They parlayed all of the success. They had the Magic Johnson, Larry Bird in 79.
Yeah.
Then they parlayed year after year after year of successful Final Fours and championship games. You had Carolina getting Dean's first championship against Georgetown, where they should have lost. But, guy threw the ball to James Worthy by accident.
Wasn't a guy named Blackman?
The guy
who played for
Georgetown. Well, there was Sleepy Floyd was the star.
Sleepy Floyd.
I think the last name of the guy that threw the ball away was Brown. Okay. But I'm not quite sure. But
anyway, I heard an
still
interview.
Picture him.
He said he just looked over and didn't even think. He
right.
just threw it. James Worthy just standing there out of position completely.
James Worthy got faked out.
Yeah.
And then he was out of place. So he was basically where Sleepy Floyd should have been.
Yeah. Sleepy Floyd took off toward the basket.
Right. And then instead, the guy thought Sleepy Floyd was James Worthy standing there. So you had that game. You had the following year, you had Jim Valvano and the North Carolina State with the final dunk against Phi Slamma Jamma with future NBA Hall of Famers.
Whole NBA team.
Right. Clyde Drexler and Hakeem Olajuwon, two of the greatest players to ever play.
This just goes to show you anybody can win one game.
Right. And then the ultimate upset was Villanova against Georgetown in '85. So all of this stuff, and then the combination of, at that point, a lot of people don't understand, us old heads would, but in the 80s, believe it or not, you didn't have college sports or any sports on TV on a regular, right? But cable expanded that.
Yeah.
Cable parlayed the Big East, the Big East Conference and the ACC Conference had their cable rights, and college basketball just blew up. And so when it came down to this '87 tournament and this happened, it was a big deal.
Yeah. It was a big deal.
Yeah. So anyway, Barrett's voice was the voice of the song from '87 to '93. Teddy Pendergrass, Teddy P.
I do not recall that version.
You got what I need. That's right, Teddy. Turn them off. Teddy, 94 to 99.
Really?
I actually enjoyed that version.
Okay.
Then they went back to Barrett.
Yeah.
And
so they went back to Barrett.
Yep, for 2 years.
Okay.
3 years, 2000 to 2002, and then Luther came along.
Yes.
Luther was like, "Hold my drink." Basically, was like,
"Hold my drink."
Give me the microphone. I'm gonna show you how it's done. And basically, since 2003, he's been the main one. They had a few people here and there. They had Jennifer Hudson did one in 2010, and Neo unsuccessfully did his in 2016, and they never asked his ass to come back. So there you go. Now it's basically Luther Vandross.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, it's one of the greatest. It's one of the greatest things to me on TV. And if they don't have ratings for it because it's at the end of the game, but I would have to believe the ratings of the game, because they go for like 45 minutes after the game, and the game never ends. Yeah. Well, on the East Coast time, the game doesn't end at a time in which most people are watching TV.
Well, the game starts at 8:30.
Right.
And it goes for 2.5 hours.
Right.
So you're looking at 11 o'clock. One Shining Moment doesn't start until almost midnight East Coast.
Right. Time. And people still are watching.
Yeah.
So I would have to believe that that's a main reason why people are watching is because you got One Shining Moment.
Yeah. Now, we have to talk about the editing. I want to talk about this editing thing. At the end of the game, you got to have two people editing this, because you got one team that's going to win, you got one team that's going to lose. So therefore, you got one person in one place editing for the one team and one person editing for the other team. Would that be right?
Well, I tried to find who did the edits for it. I could not find anyone specifically, but I would have to believe you have to have one person monitoring at least one team's highlights.
Yeah.
And then they choose to, it's really not a lot of the championship game in the montage, right? Mm-hmm. It's like the last 15 seconds of it, right? And usually 5 of it is a Nat Sound pop, basically.
But even so, there's stuff in there. Say there was something in the game where a big play happened.
Right. They have
for one team or another. You would have to throw that in there for
the
winning team.
Right. So it's about 15 to 20 seconds.
Yeah.
And again, they have a Nat pop of it. Basically is sound that says congratulations to whoever who won. Right. So it's not a lot of video, but I'm sure they want to have the best clips.
Yeah.
And so it's a lot, but regardless of what anybody thinks, it's a lot of work.
Oh, it's
You
a
know,
lot of work.
And to make sure that it airs flawlessly when you have a lot of hands in a live broadcast, I mean, usually you have stuff sealed to the T for a
Yeah.
live broadcast. You don't be just, hey, let's just cut this during the game.
You don't look like my video editing for this YouTube channel, I'll tell you that.
Local news will do it, right? Local broadcasts will do it.
Yeah.
But national, they don't play it around like that. That's why you don't see too many errors. They basically iron out everything before the broadcast, and that's why you see these animations and graphics, where it literally somebody looked like they worked on it for a month, and it airs for 30 seconds of a football game or a basketball game, and you're like, that is somebody's job.
Yeah.
For a week and a half, they were working on that one graphic. And then they just air it for that 30 seconds and it's over.
But I mean, just to go through all the footage of the first two rounds is an unbelievable amount. How many hours of basketball do they have to go through to get a few highlights?
And to sync it up to the beat of the song. They always do a good
up to the song. Yes.
It's a major project. I personally, even though I love One Shining Moment, I still watch it. I do feel like the effort with more technology today, I don't feel like the effort is into it as much as they used to.
Imagine what back when they used to do it on tape.
Yeah.
Holy cow.
That has got to be some work. But I didn't go back and research to see if they always showed a lot of clips from the final game, right?
I bet they used to show more clips from other parts of the tournament because of the final game. Because if you were doing this on tape, and you got 45 minutes, there's no way you can throw in much stuff because that takes a lot.
Now, if I remember it correctly, because as soon as I found out that was the first time it aired, I'm pretty sure they did have the Keith Smart shot. Yes. In the One Shining Moment from '87. So, and here's another thing you got to realize, everybody. In 1980, in the '80s, SportsCenter was a thing, but it wasn't like it. Well, I'm not gonna say it's not like it is today because SportsCenter is basically just a bunch of people yapping now. They don't hardly show any highlights.
Trying to make a sound drop. They try real hard to make sound drops.
But back then,
cooler than the other side of the pillow.
Right. That's right. That's right. But back then, you didn't have all the access that you have. You couldn't go to your fancy phone and watch highlights of any game. You couldn't get updates on scores like you're talking about. So we used to actually watch Howard Cosell in the early 80s, during halftime, just to hope that he would play a highlight of an NFL game of your favorite team. And the little, 6 minutes that they gave him in the highlights and Monday Night Football highlights. So it wasn't a lot of access to a lot of stuff back then. So when they did this, it was like a big thing. It was something that, you didn't see on a regular. So good for them. And tell the story about how they, almost messed the TV execs almost messed it up, Bill.
All right. Barrett wrote the song. Mm-hmm. He's in an interview. He said, I wrote this song for basketball. So then he said he phoned a friend who worked for ESPN and said, hey, I've got this song. Can you do anything with it? And I wrote it for basketball. So anyway, so he knew somebody at CBS and he said, hey, can you use this song for some sporting event? Well, they said, we got the Super Bowl this year. Maybe we could throw it into the Super Bowl highlights. This is back when they used to have the celebration in the locker room. Yeah, not on the field.
That's right.
Not on the field with confetti. They used to go in the locker room, with Irv Cross talking to, the coach and stuff.
Yeah, and
the trophy presentation in the locker room.
Pro players would have their wives, their mistresses. Yeah. Everybody would be in there at the same time. It was everybody getting all liquored up on the
Yeah.
champagne.
So anyway, so this is how it used to be. So anyway, so he gave it to CBS and said, "Hey, we could use this for the Super Bowl." Well, it didn't work out. So then they's like, "Hey, we can use this during our Final Four that's coming up." At the end, they decided, "Hey, we'll use it at the very end." Whoever's idea this was brilliant. I'm sure it was just some thought that they had randomly. Let's just throw this in here, and it worked out for them really well.
It's a classic now.
It's an unbelievable classic. They advertised. They had Charles Barkley singing "One Shining Moment," playing the piano. I'm going to put that in this video. It is funny. He sings as well as I do.
Listen, here we go, Bill.
Here we go.
The
We're gonna
ball
sing it.
is tipped, and there you are.
I don't know the song.
You're running for your life.
Yeah.
You're a shooting star.
You know the whole song?
I don't, but I do know the beginning.
We can play on our fancy phone.
Huh?
We can play it on our fancy
And all
phone.
the years, no one knows just how you work, but now it shows. One shining moment. Never had one singing lesson.
Never had one singing lesson. Look at you. You're a star on TV now.
No, actually,
Everybody wants to be a YouTube star. Well, you've made it.
oh boy, I don't
You're
know
a
about that.
YouTube star.
Yeah, I'll be an example of
I
how
bet-
not to sing.
This video is going to have at least 35 people watch it.
Ooh. Hey, by the way, congratulations to UConn. The women's team won the championship, dominating South Carolina, dominating UCLA in the Final Four. And, I mean, you know, everybody's basically dumping on Sean Staley from South Carolina. But you know what?
You know,
You-
everybody.
You
That's the
can't
first
win
thing.
them every year.
That's the first thing we're going to do is just rag on them.
Right.
They lost. Ugh.
Well,
Well,
they lost to UConn.
everybody lost, folks. Everybody.
Only one
Except
team
one
wins.
team. Everybody loses.
Only one team has the shining.
Remember, if you're a sports fan, you have a lot more tragedies than
moment.
you do
Right,
victories.
that's right. That's right.
That's the way that it is.
Do you have a? Before we go, do you
Before
have
we
a
go.
favorite or most memorable shining moment from the NCAA tournament?
Emotion.
I know what your most hated is.
Let's not talk about that. Okay. The one that for whatever reason
Yeah.
this stands out is Mateen Cleaves when they won the
Oh, yeah.
championship. It was 2000
Yeah.
with Michigan State. He's holding the basketball crying.
Yeah.
That's
That
the
was a good
one that I remember
That's a
a
good one.
lot because that and they played that over and over. That's for some reason I remember that one of all the ones. And the Key Smart thing I've seen a lot. I guess because that was the first one.
Yeah. I still think the Jim Valvano. I really thought I was, even as a
Was that in One Shining Moment, or is that just the
No,
highlight of the
that
end of
was-
the game
when
when he's running around the court?
that was before One Shining Moment. That was in
Yeah.
'83, I think.
It was
But
83.
I think it was March of '83, and I was pulling for Houston. Like Houston was my favorite team. I mean, they were dynamic, and at
Yeah.
the time I couldn't appreciate it.
They were
but-
an NBA team.
Right. But as I got older, I really, that moment when Lorenzo Charles spiked the ball and everybody's on the court like, what just happened? Is the game over? Can't be over because Houston lost. Right. So everybody's looking around like,
No.
the game's over. Right. And then everybody celebrates and then Valvano runs on the court. And of course, he was such an iconic coach. And then of course he became the,
He
the
became Jim Valvano.
spokesperson for cancer research. And
Yeah.
So that's my one moment.
Even though that's not
Even
one
though
shining
it's not
moment.
one shining
It
moment.
was.
That is my most iconic.
It was a shining
Yeah.
moment.
And then of course Carolina getting beat by Villanova was my worst. Last second shot, great shot. Blah blah blah.
Blah, 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 blah.
Why don't you tell us what yours is, Bill?
All right. I'm
All
gonna,
you have to do is
I'm just going to tell you this one story.
yeah.
I'm at work. This is like 2 years ago.
Mhm.
I'm driving on a Thursday, right at noon. I'm in a car and I'm going to turn the radio on because the tournament's about to start.
Mhm.
And how do they start the show on the radio? Christian Laettner making this
Christian
shot.
Laettner.
I can't. It's like it was like 26 years later or whatever, and they still stick the knife in you. Ugh.
Damn Duke.
You know, you can still get a T-shirt that says "I still hate Laettner."
Did you get some kind of satisfaction out of Duke choking like dogs
Oh,
this
I
weekend?
loved it. Loved it. Oh man, I'm telling you, especially when they were up by 6 with 33 seconds left.
Yeah.
Right
Yeah.
on.
All right. So anyway, well, thanks for joining us. That's
All
all
right.
I got.
That's all I got. So remember, folks, we'll see y'all later. And like and subscribe because we need a gazillion dollars because we are going to create our own one shining moment with our 88 YouTube videos so far. So long, everybody.
The ball is tipped, and there you are. You're running for your life. You're a shooting star. One shining moment is all on the line. One shining moment. That's good.
So long, everybody.